Hi, Siri. I'm looking for a new podcast, one that preferably is hosted by a UF Hall of Famer, one that airs every weekday that would bring me everything I need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions. Siri, is there such a show?
Have you heard of PodUp with Mathews in the morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or any podcast platform?
Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? UF Hall of Famer Shane Mathews has a show every weekday. I'm gonna go check it out tomorrow. Thanks, Siri.
Good morning. It's a live edition of PodUp with Mathews in the morning from the International Diamond Center studios. Fine jewelry, watches, and much more. Family owned and operated with the largest selection of natural diamond jewelry. We got JC today. We'll also have Coach Carlin Hartman, Associate Head Coach of the Florida Gators, your national champs. To get your basketball questions ready for him. If you missed it last night, heartbreaking loss in the Final Four for men's golf. Just played the last three holes, just awful, and they lose to Virginia. JC, you're on the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tent. What's going on?
That has to be one of the best, most difficult grinds mentally that you'll see in college sports. When you play golf at 6:50 in the morning and you're not done until, basically 12 to 14 hours later with a break in between. Now, granted, you get that length because you've won, but the Gators have so much to be proud of with this team in particular, due to the youth of this team. And it was just, a tough wall they ran into. Matthew Kress did not play with his best, obviously, and you can't blame him. It's just golf, and sometimes that's what happens. But I just think mentally, even for kids at that age, it is just so amazing. I was probably, along with you, maybe the only two people in America watching that from start to finish, and I did literally watch it from start to finish with a drive home from work in between. And I was just amazed at how clutch some of these kids performed. Some of the kids from Mississippi, obviously Virginia, and just the overall quality of golf, given those, what was at stake, when it was at stake, putts that had to be made were made when they had to be, shots that were taken, a little offline, recovery of those shots was pretty impressive, keeping the player in the hole. And watching match play is really one of the best things you can do when you watch golf. I know stroke play is what we all do and what we all watch, but just try some match play once in a while. It is highly competitive, a highly competitive thing to watch, and it's really great television, I think.
Yeah, it's I thought the Gators had the match won on hole 16, well, par 3, when I think it was Jack Turner. He hits the green. It's a 140-yarder. They hit it in the water.
Yeah.
Their kid from the drop zone hits a great shot in there, makes bogey, and Jack 3 putts, and we tie the hole.
Yeah.
We take the lead there with 2 to play. I think we win, but then we hit a couple bad errant tee balls off of 18. But it's just that's golf.
That is golf.
And Ole Miss had a chance to win their match, and it was crazy. But yeah, I watched. I think it was I counted 11 hours of college golf yesterday. And it was worth it. Didn't come out the way I wanted it.
Well,
JC Deacon, Dudley Hart, those kids, great year.
You talk about Jack got a bad break in the bunker too. He had a horrible lie. The ball was buried, fried egg. It's really difficult to try to get up and out of that and make par. And you can look back at all kinds of shots, but the Mississippi kids were really impressive to me with Fisher, this kid Fisher, to just get them to the semifinals. After watching Arizona State chip the ball in, this kid had to make a 22-foot putt just to keep his team playing, and he was able to do it. It's just – I love watching that kind of drama. That's the kind of thing that really gets my motor running, and I think we've got a great final with Oklahoma State and Virginia. So when you look at that, you go forward now to baseball, which is coming up, and softball. We're going to see a lot of the same thing. We're going to see dramatic finishes. We may see some duds, but for the most part, I think what you've got coming up in the field of 64 for the baseball team and for the College World Series in the softball team is a lot to look forward to. And you and I are going to be just zeroed in on the TV I think. So we're not going to be the most fun people to be around probably, because we're going to be absolutely captivated by what's on that TV, because I love this time of year with these spring sports, baseball, softball is unbelievable. I love how I watch it.
Yep. Both teams play at noon Eastern Standard Time. Softball tomorrow and baseball on Friday. Brandon says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel. Heck of a run by the golf team. The wheels came off the wagon on those finishing holes to what JC and Dudley are doing with those boys is impressive. Yeah, they have the program growing, and we've said it multiple times. For what we have from a facility standpoint, it's truly amazing, quite honestly.
It really is. It really, really is. I hope something can be done about that at some point in the athletic department. I'm just not sure it's in the budget. I don't know what they're thinking over there.
Well, no.
I don't know.
All that's in the budget and ready to go. It's the county and the city we live in is the problem.
Okay. Well, I mean, I get it. I do. I understand that. But there has to be some way to lobby. But there has to be a way to lobby these people. I mean, there has to be a way to.
Well, when you have the guy that runs Augusta National Golf Club, lobbying for you, there's a problem in this county and city. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, that's fair.
QC Kinetics for long-lasting relief. No surgery, downtime. Schedule your free consultation at QC Kinetics. We got JC. We have Carlin Hartman, the associate head basketball coach of your national champs, will join us in the second portion of the program. All right, JC, your Knickerbockers go down 3-1 last night.
Right. I liked Indiana yesterday. I tell you, the Pacers and Thunder would be quite a final. The Knicks, I think, can win Game 5, push that series to 6, which would really be good for me. But I don't see them winning it. They're not going to beat Indiana 3 times in a row. It just seems like Rick Carlisle's pushing all the right buttons. As for Oklahoma City and Minnesota, that series should be over as well. In the next game in Oklahoma City, we'll get a final between two teams we did not expect, and two teams that I don't know if the TV people are all overly excited about. But if you like great basketball, I mean, with the young players who give you something to watch. I mean, Indiana's got to be the most cardiac team I've ever seen ever. I mean, they pull out games with that they have basically that they're going to lose. Down 7 with 50 seconds left, they pull games out. In this series with the Knicks, it hasn't been quite so dramatic, but I think they've clearly shown to be the better team. As for hockey, Dallas looks dead. Edmonton is driven. I think they're just the overall skill of some of these guys on those lines for Edmonton is taken over with McDavid and Ryan Nugent and Hopkins and Draisaitl and so forth. So you're looking at that. And then tonight you've got the Florida Panthers, the defending Cup champions. We're looking at a rematch of the Stanley Cup Finals from last year. If Florida can finish off Carolina tonight in Raleigh, they should be able to do that. They've handled both home games in Raleigh or both road games in Raleigh pretty easily. That should be finished. We'll have a rematch of the Stanley Cup Finals, and then we'll have two basic unknowns in Oklahoma City and Indiana playing for the NBA Finals. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's great. I'd rather watch that than LeBron or anybody like that. So I think it's decent. And then the golf, the baseball this weekend, QB, I was looking at these brackets, these regionals, and the one that Florida's in, the field of 64, it's just like in basketball, you're seeded and so forth, but you've got 64 teams here. Florida's region, I really think is very, very doable. I think everybody understands that Coastal Carolina should and is the number 1 seed, but can be had. And East Carolina, I don't know much about them. The record's not that impressive. So I expect Florida to win that. To beat Fairfield and Coastal Carolina to get through that. And if they can, they're looking at a trip to Auburn in all likelihood. And I would say if you look on that region, the team in the Florida regional that comes out should be Florida. The team in the Auburn regional with Central Connecticut State, Stetson, and NC State should be Auburn. So that looks like an SEC head-to-head in what is known as the Sweet 16 in basketball parlance, but can also be considered that in baseball, but they call it the Super Regionals. Florida and Auburn should be ending up playing in the same bracket in their Super Regional. And then going forward, you've got North Carolina in this regional at home, should get through. I think Oklahoma is the 2 seed there. I think North Carolina gets through that. I really like North Carolina. Their 2 starting pitchers are unbelievable. And they're going to face the winner of the Oregon region. And I like North Carolina to get through because they will be hosting that Super Regional. So It could be that Florida has to beat Auburn, and then eventually in the College World Series they'll be playing North Carolina. We'll see. I don't know. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I just think Florida can play.
You're way ahead of yourself, JC.
Yeah,
a lot of baseball replay. I was speaking with someone that knows college baseball very well. They said Coastal Carolina could have the best pitching staff in America.
Really?
So,
I didn't hear that about Coastal Carolina.
Yes.
Well, how are they not a top 8 seed?
I heard that.
Well, did you ask the guy why they're not a top 8 seed?
Well, they're a top 16 seed.
They are.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not going to argue with somebody that does this on a daily basis.
Okay.
That's all they do is cover college baseball. And they said that Coastal Carolina can pitch the damn baseball as good as anybody in America. So we'll see. But, people do like the Gators in that region, that regional, as I do. And we'll see what happens from there.
I love it.
Here's a YouTube brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Andrew says, Florida has the best athletic program in the country. Prove to me I'm wrong. Interesting you brought that up, Andrew. I was having a discussion with someone yesterday, too, via text while I was watching college golf for 10 hours. They threw this stat at me saying, you need to mention on your program that Florida is the only school that went to a bowl game, the NCAA basketball tournament, the College World Series, in softball, make a regional, all this stuff. And I was like, I don't know if that's a fact. Let's back up, because I want to say Tennessee and Ole Miss have done everything that Florida did this year from each sports. Now we're not talking about winning national title. We're talking about getting into postseason play, so to speak. I think that's where people look at it. JC, how would you rank the SEC all sports right now?
I don't know who
would you put at the top?
Well, who would be? You mean in the conference? Who would be the best? I'd say right now, if you include all of these sports that you just talked about, you have to look at Florida, and then you have to look at Mississippi, and then you have to look at
I would go, and probably in no order. We'd have to sit here and write out all the sports, but I would put Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and Ole Miss at the top. Those 4 schools.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to include all these secondary sports, which are very important, by the way, yes, you got to look at Florida. So why don't we go ahead and have Scott Strickland extended? Let's just go ahead and extend him. And the reason why, people don't want to do that is because of what happens on the football field. Now, in the football field, the expectations are exponentially higher this year than they were last year because of what we saw at the end of last year and during the offseason. So if Florida can put it together on the gridiron, get more than 8 wins, and get out of a secondary bowl game, then you've got the total package. But really, that's what people look at. And I think if you look at all sports, that is highly, highly, highly regarded in terms of the overall athletic department. You have to say Scott Strickland's doing a great job. And so I think that it all comes down to one common denominator with all of these athletic departments. To me, it comes down to the people that the ADs hire to coach these programs. And so coaching, to me, is a very strong part of what makes the University of Florida an elite university in terms of overall athletic department performance. And there is no question. You've got a lacrosse team in the Final Four. You've got a softball team in the Final 8. You've got a baseball team that could get to the Final 8, a golf team that made the Final 4. You've got basketball that won the national championship, on and on and on, and it's undeniable. But one thing that gets in the way of all of this when it comes to just the overall conversation with the athletic director is how the performance of the football team overrides everything. So right now, the Florida football team, it's on them because everybody else in this athletic department has really overachieved in some respects. That golf team overachieved this year, meaning they did not have the expectation that they were thinking we did not have the expectation they would be back at La Casa. I just didn't see that, but it happened. And then look at the baseball team. They come out of nowhere. Well, maybe you did. Maybe a little bit more about the program. But I don't know if the rankings had it that way, but perhaps they did. And then you look at the baseball team. That team was dead and buried, and they came out of nowhere. Softball team with injuries everywhere. You got the legendary coach there. So when you look at the one thing that I think is behind all of this success, it comes down to what these coaches are able to do in terms of getting the right kids, getting the players who are the right kids, and then performing on game day. You get those three ingredients together, you're going to have a successful program, and it does flow up to the AD. But the one thing that has to happen for that to be a complete package, in my opinion, is that the damn football team needs to be in the SEC championship game. It has been way too long, and that game is still alive in spite of what we're hearing off the field with all of the news about college football. So to me, we get that. You've got the complete package. But yes, there's no question that this school is very representative in some of these sports that we're watching right now.
Well, right. But I agree 100%. Football does everything for every school. But it wasn't, did the football team compete for an SEC championship? The gentleman that sent me the text was talking about a team that made a bowl game, a team that made the NCAA tournament, a team that made the college baseball playoffs, women's softball playoffs, golf, all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, that is all true. However, Texas did it, I believe. Tennessee has done it, and Ole Miss did it. Has done all of those as well. So I don't know. I'd have to write it all down, but I would put those four schools within the conference as the premier all sports schools at this time.
Yeah, I can't.
That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. We got a lot of people here chiming in about the all sports stuff. They'd rather just win in football. I agree 100%.
That's my point. That is
but here's
my
the
point,
thing.
TV.
But here, no, I agree with that 1,000%. But if you're going to go tee up the ball, go win. If you're going to roll out the softballs, let's go win. Let's just don't have the sports just to say we have the sports. And they do a tremendous job across campus in every sport.
And I think
it's simple as that.
I think it's because of the coaching assembly that they have here at this school. And I think you have to give the AD, you have to give him his props for that, because he's the guy who's assembling that. Now, Scott Strickland did not hire Tim Walton. I get that and so on. But that is, to maintain those coaches, to keep them here and not let them stray with wandering eyes, is also something that Scott Strickland is responsible for. And he has done it, as far as I'm concerned. So, the facility upgrades that they've had here, it's just tremendous. So I'm very happy and excited, for those who care about these secondary sports, and I shouldn't call them secondary, but they are, sports underneath the football umbrella. It is amazing. But nobody here is going to be completely satisfied totally unless the football team gets it together and gets going. That 2020 SEC championship game during COVID was the last time they were in Atlanta, and half the stadium was empty, and it was to no fault of their own. And they played Alabama very close that game for the most part. So that was the last time you saw, I think, really a representative Florida Gator football team that people were proud of. That was Dan Mullen, Kyle Trask, and so forth and so on. And since then, it's just been nothing. So hopefully that changes this fall. I believe it will. I think the expectations are where they should be. And I want this team, with what they have done in the offseason, to be a team that the Gator fans are really excited about. And I think they will be. I really do. I think the schedule allows for it, because they're going to play teams that Florida is really matched up against, that many people think is very difficult, but that people like you and others think should be easy win. I mean, you never were afraid of Tennessee. You guys were never afraid of Kentucky. And nowadays it seems like those are games that Florida has to sweat. It shouldn't be that way. And when Florida gets back to where it belongs, those games will not be sweats. They'll be difficult to win, but they should be won. And that's where the results will come in, to where I think Florida fans will be satisfied. We will see. I just think the fall is going to be very telling on this tenure of this coach. And it's probably the biggest year we've had here. And of course, we say that every year. But this is a realistic chance now, to have a superior team in this league, because things are changing, and they're changing fast, and the Gator fans want to be a part of it.
Yeah, Baron71 on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, QB, we support our non-revenue sports and wish them well, but it's infuriating how Foley neglected football and how Strickland's priority has been to get the facilities completed that Foley neglected. I agree with that 100%. Text on the Titan Mar text line for Kevin says, can we throw in women's lacrosse? We did mention that.
We did.
I have to think UF is the only school with a Big 12 and an SEC championship in the same year for two different sports. They are. Yeah. We're the only school that plays women's lacrosse. in the conference.
Jimmy, what do you
JC,
think?
let's get to this.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wanted to get your take before we go on in the rundown here. I wanted to get your take on all this stuff that Sankey, Greg Sankey is dealing with. The fact that the what was that bit about the NCAA leaving the NCAA? What does that mean, QB? I'm not following.
Well, I think I saw some clips from Sankey saying within 27 or 28, maybe 2029, that the SEC won't be part of the NCAA. So, look, that stuff is way over my pay grade. I don't really care to talk about it until it actually all happens, and I don't know what's going to happen. I'll have Brent Beard. He can fill us in on all that stuff tomorrow, whatever's happening in Destin. But look, the SEC and the Big Ten run football. It's that simple. The other schools doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
well,
you're in the ACC and all that stuff. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to make decisions where NCAA athletics go in the next couple of years, in my opinion.
Well,
This day in sports, you want to mention something about that?
Well, I was just going to say, Trev Alberts yesterday mentioned that if they do a 4-4 format where 4 automatic qualifiers from both leagues come in, you're looking at 9 conference games. I guess we've reiterated that before, but that's what I really hope happens. And
that will happen. That is going to happen eventually. We just don't know when.
Okay.
This day in sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Puts the star power to work in your financial life. Campus USA Credit Union, 1962, The Wide World of Sports with Chris Schenkel. Premiered on CBS Radio. The Wide World of Sports. That's This Day of Sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. All right, now it's time for the Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte, surrounding areas. Go visit them at peachlanddental.com. We got a really good golf tournament this weekend, the Memorial Jack Nicklaus's tournament up in Ohio. We are going to pick Scotty Scheffler is the favorite by a mile, so we're not even going to pick him.
So he, it's funny. Scotty is playing for the 3rd straight week, and then I guess he'll take a week off before the PGA. I guess that's the schedule. But this guy does not.
That would be the U.S. Open.
I beg your pardon, the U.S. Open, correct. And this guy does not take time off. I mean, he looks at this as a full-time job, so you have to applaud him for that. I really love the way Scotty's calendar and schedule conforms to my viewing pleasure, because I love watching him play just because I love seeing excellence, and that's what he is. He's the best golfer on the planet. It's hard to believe that you could be, of all the people, how many is there? 4 billion people on the planet, and he is the best at what he does in this particular activity. It is unreal how good he is. But having said that, since you have banned him from my picking, which, I guess is allowed since you're in charge.
Well, I picked him last time and he won.
Yeah.
Because you didn't pick him.
Well, that's
so. Take that.
Well, take that, he says. All right, I'm starting it off. Or who's starting, me or you?
Go ahead.
Colin Morikawa on this course is very good. I like his game at the Memorial.
All right, I'm going to take Xander. He's hitting the ball good, but he's putting terrible. Maybe he'll make some putts.
Yeah, it's been health for him, his health. I'm going to take Andrew Novak. I love his length on this course.
Oh, I love my man.
Yeah, I think my guy can play. He well, of course he can play, but I think he's a real threat to win. So I'm going to go with him.
Let's see. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to go with Tony Finau.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea why.
His length is tremendous. I mean, he's very long. This course, though, it demands great putting, obviously, great putting, but I think you have to combine that with a little bit better than average length off the tee, and you got to keep it out of the rough. Jack puts that rough up there. His courses are hard, notoriously hard, Jack Nicklaus. It's just the way he designs courses, and this place that he's named after, Muirfield Village is named after his favorite course in Scotland. So that's where he gets that from. All right, so I'm going to take, this just seems boring because, these names to me is who I usually always take, but they've been the right picks. We've done well in golf. I'm going to take my guy, Roll Tide Justin Thomas.
All right, Justin Thomas.
Long off the tee, man.
And just for our listeners out there, if you ever – so, JC, it's like you pick your golfers to win top 5, top 10, top 20. That way you have a chance of winning some type of money. I'm taking Sungjae Im.
Yeah. Boy, you cannot get away from that guy. You cannot get away from that guy.
Well, it depends. I have to have a South Korean in there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you, little Bud Cauley's played great golf here in the last couple of weeks, but I'm not taking him. Instead, I'm going to go with Ludwig Oberg. I think he's going to play better. He's not had a great couple of weeks. I think he really bounces back strong on this very challenging course. Very challenging.
Yeah, I love his game. I love his swing. I love his pace of play.
You love everything about
him. I do. Give me Russell Henley.
Okay, good player, not long, but really strong. QB, what do you think the score will be? I mean, this is really one of the tougher courses. This is one of those signature event type courses. I'm looking at something like 9 or 10 under at max, maybe not even that low. What do you think?
I'm going to go 13 under par.
13? All right, I'm going to put you down for 13. I'm going to put me down for 9, -9. All right, so we got 4. We're going to take another one?
We can if you'd like.
All right, one more. I'm going to go with Justin Rose. Rosie,
okay.
Long shot.
All right, I will take I'm going to take the guy that won last week, which is a tremendous story, Ben Griffin, who quit golf to go, I think, be like a mortgage.
Yeah.
He got into the mortgage business or something and decided he wanted to play again, and now he's winning in tournaments on the PGA Tour.
And he won at one of the best courses on the tour at one of the hardest venues at Colonial. I mean, it was unbelievable that he would pull that out like that. A nobody. And his life is, we've talked about this before, QB, his life absolutely changed that just over the weekend, just like that. So I love those stories. Those are some of the best. I hope he has another good week. It'd be hard for me to see that happening, but he could. And, another guy who's played well on this course that we did not take, but you guys can look at very seriously for top 10 or even top 20 and maybe even top 5 is Victor Hovland. He loves this course. He has won this tournament. For some reason, he plays exceptionally well on this particular format. Victor Hovland's the guy I didn't pick, but I think I'm going to grab him for top 20 and top 10 for sure. Top 20, but definitely top 10 to get those numbers better. And maybe if I'm feeling frisky, top 5. He loves this course. So keep that in mind, folks. If you're making your picks on Hard Rock for golf this weekend, a guy like Hovland, you want to look at guys who just have a certain eye for the course. This is one that Victor Hovland really loves to play. I think he'll play well this weekend. He just loves this course.
Here's a text on the Titan MR text line from James. He says, what are y'all's thoughts about Rory not playing this week and not even calling Jack to let him know?
That surprised me a little bit. Me a little bit. I mean, Rory's been holding the PGA Tour flag for so long now in the face of all that live adversity, if you will, if you want to call it that. I don't know if that's the right word, but he has been representing the PGA Tour and staying on the PGA Tour for these golfers. And, Jack is Jack. I mean, he is the Zeus of golf. So I don't know. I don't know what the story is there. Maybe him and Jack have had a disagreement over something. You just never know what goes on behind the scenes there. But Rory is going to be a threat in the U.S. Open. QB, at Oakmont, they have a par 3 that is 290
yards. Yeah. Wait till you see the rough. I cannot wait.
Oh.
Have you seen, we talk a lot of golf on this, and if you don't like it, too bad. Oakmont, which a lot of people say might be the best layout in the country from a golf course standpoint. Yeah. But a few years ago, they cut down like thousands of trees there. And if you look at the aerial view of the two golf courses after they redid it, it was all over Twitter. It's like, here's Oakmont, and here is just Mont. There are no more oak trees.
Yeah.
It looks like it's like a links course now.
Yeah.
And
worst earth possible.
But it's still.
Well, I tell you, it's still going to be.
You don't cut trees down in this area.
Apparently not. They have feelings, but I think that Oakmont it's one of the premier. Yeah, it is. It's like Erin Hills. I mean, it's an amazing place. All right, my man.
Yep. All right, we got to go, JC. Have a good week. We'll talk to you on Friday. That's JC. Join us on the Titan MR Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Quick timeout. Come back. We'll be joined by Coach Hartman from your national champs. Get your questions ready. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Mathews in the Morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. We'll be right back.
Our premium sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union,
International Diamond Center,
Meldon Law, QC Kinetics, Dave & Buster's, UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute, JF Hayden Craft Liqueurs, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Los Linderos Tequila. Gridiron sponsors are Baker Sporting Goods, Comfort Temp, Electronics World, Florida Victorious, Gallo Car Wash, Miapa Latin Cafe, Peachland Dental, Quality Plumbing, Ruse Ogre State Farm, Silverback Concrete, 84 Lumber, Big Mills Cheesesteak, Celebrate Primary Care, Dowling Signs, Gator Bait Media, Gator Dominoes, Ironwood Golf Course, Okido America, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, UF Bookstores, Nest and Wow, MG&A Wealth Management. Watch and listen to us live on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To become a sponsor, call my man Freddie at 352-284-3733.
Coach, you know what always impressed me? How you beat Florida State to win the 1996 National Championship.
And I was really impressed with your 06, 08, and 09 Gator teams.
And the way you coached Danny to the Heisman Trophy.
A lot like what you did with Tim Tebow.
You know, you won more SEC championships than you lost home games at the Swamp.
And you had plenty of super games in front of our Gator Nation.
Yeah, there really is something special about the Swamp.
I guess that's why we say about the Swamp, only the Gators get out alive.
To the Swamp and the Gators, with the best beverage served at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. 100% agave, Los Linderos tequila. Aged in bourbon barrels for a smoother taste.
I think you mean Head Beer Coach 1966 lager, a crisp, light, bodied lager for easy drinking.
Nope. Los Linderos tequila, smooth enough to drink neat, bold enough to elevate a cocktail.
1966 lager, enjoyed on game days in the fall or whenever you need a winning cold brew.
Los Linderos tequila.
1966 lager.
Los Linderos.
1966 lager.
Y'all stop bickering.
Okay, you're both wrong anyway. The best thing Spurrier's Gridiron Grill offers are Jerry's famous chocolate chip cookies.
I'm tired of you living in pain, and I want you to get real lasting relief from chronic pain in your knees, back, shoulders, and hips. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with cutting-edge regenerative treatments with no drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Stop putting it off. Call now and schedule your free consultation. Call QC Kinetics now in Gainesville, Ocala, and the Villages. 352-400-4550. 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the International Diamond Center Studios, Miapa Latin Cafe. Discover the ultimate Cuban culinary experience at Miapa Latin Cafe. 5 locations in Gainesville and Alachua. You're never far from the best Cuban food north of Miami. Back to the Titan and More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. We're pleased to be joined by the associate head coach of your national champ Florida Gators, Coach Carlin Hartman. Coach, how you doing, man?
Doing great this morning, Shane. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, it was you've been coaching basketball a long time. Finally got that national championship. Just talk about, I watch all these games, and I always like to watch the bench. And I talked – Chris Harry's on our program a lot, and I don't know if I've ever seen a team, regardless of the sport, love, support one another like this basketball team. And a lot of that has to come from the coaching staff. But just, guys want to play a lot of minutes.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Sometimes you got to sit on the bench. But just talk about how this team got along and just the chemistry of the team.
Yes, we got along seamlessly, and we got along seamlessly not just from a player standpoint, but from a coaching standpoint as well. Like both sides, really came together. I think it started happening last summer of 2004, when we accumulated and we got our team all here in the summertime. Elijah Martin came in with an alpha dog mentality. Ruben Chinyelo came in with his play on the floor, just toughness, physicality, his muscle. And those two guys, elevated our group from a team that we had coming back from the previous year that had won 24 games. They took us to a whole nother notch and took us to a whole nother level. And we got along great. It was one of those things too, Shane, and you've been in these locker rooms, you've been in these team rooms on the road. When we had film, the night before film, our guys would just hang around and stay downstairs, not go back up to their rooms. They're downstairs playing cards, hanging out with each other, playing video games in their rooms. And they were just, it didn't matter if it was Walter Clayton and Will Richard, who were really, really tight, but Walter Clayton and Will Richard would hang out with Cooper Josephberg and Olivier Roux, so no one really had any cliques, and everyone just got along together extremely well. And the coaches, we were all on the same page all year long.
Yeah, you could tell. I mean, just the way the guys acted on the bench. Large Fry on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, has a question for you. He says, Coach, who will be the hardest to replace, Elijah, Will, or the GOAT, Walter Clayton?
Well, the coach in me, is going to answer that by saying all three of them. So I'm not going to give you the answer that you probably want, because they all bring together different things in terms of, what they brought to the table. Was electric in his play, scoring the basketball, just giving us, that guy that you got to have in postseason play. Elijah, like I mentioned earlier, that toughness, that grit, that dog. And Will, he was the first guy that committed to us when we got here. And he gave us that leadership, that vocal guy on the floor that knew where he needed to be at all times. And, obviously without that guy in the championship game, our outcome probably would have been a lot different.
We got a text here on the Titan Mark text line from Barry in Montgomery, Alabama. He says, Coach, what is practice like with the competition among all your big men?
Yeah, it's pretty good just because, last year we had 6 of them, if you included Sam Alexis and Victor Mikic. This year, right now, we'll have another 6 to go along with Victor Mikic and Olivier Roux. And then our 4 regulars, which would be Alex Condon, Micah Hanlock, and Victor Chignello and Thomas Hawk. So the practices are essentially kind of a war, but we do a pretty good job of not going too long in practice because we got to keep their bodies healthy and fresh throughout the course of the year. But they do get competitive. We play a lot of 5-on-5 when we are on the practice floor. But our guys, they do a really good job of understanding that, listen, we got to, have these good reps, in practice, we got to go at each other a little bit. But then when it's time to, cool down and do their recovery and so forth, they're really good about that. And they're also really good about getting in a gym on their own as well.
Yeah, you got to feel pretty good, obviously, getting your 4 main big guys back. Obviously the news broke with Condon coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk about, having all 4 of your main starting big men back from a national championship team. That doesn't happen very often.
No, Shane, it doesn't happen very often at all. And obviously the last time Florida repeated, they had all their quality starters back from the previous year to the next year. But now you fast forward, however many years later, 18 years later, and now, we're in a whole new era of college athletics, with the NIL, with the portal, with, freedom of movement and so forth. And to be able to retain, those 4 guys, it's like almost like an embarrassment of riches, quite frankly. But it doesn't come as a surprise. I think Todd Golden is the very best roster builder in the country when it comes to putting together teams, putting together the right pieces of the teams. Like, we're not just taking chances on guys. We're trying to bring in people that know that we know that he knows are going to be able to fit with the program philosophy. Because at the end of the day, these are still 18 and 22-year-old kids that need mentorship, that need guidance, that need to be coached. And that's exactly, the group that we feel like we have coming up in 25, 26. So to have these 4 big guys back, man, I mean, I couldn't be more thrilled to have another year, to work with these guys, because they're not just great players, but they're quality young men.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Coach, talk about your relationship with Todd Golden. The coaching profession, especially at major schools like Florida, it's all about who you know, right?
Yeah.
Go tell the folks a little bit how you and Todd have known each other over the years, coached together, and what brought you to Gainesville.
Yeah, so essentially, Coach Golden and I, we met in 2012. I was associate coach at Columbia University under Kyle Smith, who's now the head coach at Stanford. A lot of coaching, like you said, is like 6 degrees of separation. You know, you're gonna know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody. So Kyle and I were together at Columbia together. Kyle Smith also coached Todd Golden at St. Mary's University. So when Kyle got his first shot in coaching, he offered Todd a job as soon as he got the job, but Todd wasn't ready. He was still doing some marketing stuff and just finished up his playing career in Israel. So fast forward to 2012, Todd is finally ready. We have a spot open. Kyle brings him to Columbia. Todd and I strike up a really good relationship, great working relationship, easy guy to get along with, competitive, you know, but also hardworking and driven. And from that time, he and I both left in 2014. I go back to Rice University, associate coach there. He goes to Auburn University to work under Bruce Pearl. And then fast forward to, you know, the spring of 2022, and he gets the job here at Florida. We remain in great and in close contact. I'm one of his first calls to come back and join him to do this thing, and he. It really didn't take a whole lot of convincing. I loved my. I was at Oklahoma for 5 years, and in between, I was at UNLV. Loved UNLV. Amazing people, an amazing basketball program. But when Todd called with this particular opportunity at Florida, it was essentially a no-brainer, not just to work at a prestigious university like this, but also to work with a good friend of mine. And so, obviously, we fast forward to where we are now. The rest is history. We've been together, you know, finishing our third year, and hopefully having another opportunity to do what we did this past year next year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it. We stand by. A few more minutes with Coach Carlin Hartman here on the Titan MR Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Town. This text came in from the Titan MR text line from James in Nashville, Tennessee. He said the Gators lose 2 from their staff to become head coaches. Do you have any aspirations of being a head coach?
Yeah, of course I do. I do. And I think for me now at my age, I've had other opportunities that just didn't fit at the time, you know, whether or not we were, at Oklahoma. I had an opportunity when I was there. I actually had a pretty decent one couple of years when I first got here. And I just didn't feel, number one, the first one wasn't the right fit, and the second one was the right fit. I just came in second. I think, you know, what's happening right now in our industry is you got to be very careful. You got to be very selective. And somebody in my position who, quite frankly, I have a very, very, very good job. I mean, I really do. I am associate coach at the University of Florida, one of the flagship universities, the flagship university in this state, and one of the top programs in the country. And so for me to just take another opportunity, it has to be a very special one. It has to be one that I feel like is going to be able to fit, you know, what I'm looking for in a head coaching position, from a resources standpoint, to a particular level standpoint. Because quite frankly, there's just a lot of, you know, really, there's a lot of Division I jobs out there that just are going to be, it's going to be really hard to, you know, sustain any type of level of stability based off of, you know, where we are in the market right now with, like I mentioned before, the portal and the NIL. So Florida's an outstanding place. I love it here. My family loves it here. My kids, my wife, and my son, who's thriving and is a good basketball player in his own right. So, yeah, I love it here. But again, it will take a very special situation for me to, you know, move forward and take over my own program.
Yeah. Tanya Ron says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. What sort of feedback did Condon get from the NBA, specifically his game strength and weaknesses? Was his question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I wasn't privy to that information, but what I would tell you is that I think he and Thomas Hawk, when they both went into the draft process, and Ruben Chinyelo as well, so those three, they spent a couple of weeks, you know, learning about themselves. I think they followed the same path that Will Richardson and Walter Clayton did last year when they went through the draft process. Those two guys got good feedback. They, you know, Will came back a totally different player, and he adhered to a lot of the things that the draft people wanted him to do, which is become a better defender, be more of a 3-and-D level guy, but really, really concentrating on defensive end of the floor. Will led us in steals this past year. Same thing with Walter, working on his conditioning, working on, being a point guard, a true point guard, and also defensively as well. He did those things, extremely well. And so, based off of what I've seen with Alex and Thomas when I went to their workouts, ton of shooting from both those guys, perimeter shots, be able to make those on a consistent basis. And for Alex, finishing in around the rim, just having the confidence to be able to, finish through contact and, finish off plays, if you will. But both of them have been outstanding in terms of, assist to turnover ratio, taking care of the ball on the perimeter, being able to make plays for their teammates. So if they can just keep on expounding on that aspect of their games, and also while also being able to make shots at a high rate on the perimeter, there's no reason why both those guys won't hear their name called in the first round of the draft. Hopefully in the next year or so.
All right, text here. I knew this was going to come. Text on the Titan Bar text line from Josh in Mississippi says, "Good morning, Coach. How far away is Ollie from playing in his first college basketball game?"
Ollie's working really hard. He's got a great attitude. He does a lot of extra work. He puts in the time. When we first offered Olivier this opportunity, we knew, and he also knew that he had a lot of work to do, and just in terms of being able to transition from one end of the floor to the other end of the floor, being able to be a quicker reactor on the floor. How far is he away? That's going to be a lot of it's going to depend on how much improvement he makes this summer. And to be honest, I mean, we have 4 really good ones coming back again next year. So the challenge is going to be just trying to figure out a role in which to carve out for himself, and he's going to have to do that every day in practice. He's going to have to come in and work his tail off, be great on the scout team, and if we can find some minutes for him somewhere down the road, we'll definitely try to do that, especially if it's for the team's best interest. But he's going to have to keep on working.
Real quick, Coach, before we let you go, just talk about the additions of Xavier Lee and Boogie Flynn, what they bring to the program.
Yeah, just experienced guys in the backcourt that have had success at the Division I level. Boogie obviously comes in from Arkansas, familiar foe to us. Highly touted high school player, McDonald's All-American, just a tremendous talent, great attitude, good kid. And very dynamic, if you will, in terms of how he is as a player offensively, and it's going to create some havoc defensively. Xavier I know a lot of people have probably seen his highlights. He can really handle the basketball. He can really push it up the floor, make shots, create for others, all those things. I know that there were some questions, like, well, can a guy from the Ivy League come in and have, the kind of success that you'd want, and so forth. But I think what, people need to remember is, the proof of concept that we have, because Walt came from, the MAC conference, and Will, came from Belmont, Elijah came from FAU. Those are not, SEC, leagues. But they're still, good leagues, but they're not the SEC. We feel like Xavier's going to be able to do the same thing. AJ Brown is another one that we signed out of Ohio University. He's the brother of Zay Brown. And so, we got some really good, veteran pieces in the backcourt that are going to help our program moving forward.
Yeah, loaded basketball team. Coach, where do they stand on the walk-on situation? Being a former player, some of my closest friends were walk-ons. I'm sure you had close walk-ons when you played at Tulane. They're part of your program. But I want to say they're trying to get away from those. Where do they stand right now with that?
If I'm not mistaken, I think each school has the option of being able to go to 15 scholarships and do away with the walk-ons, eliminate it, or stay at 13 and be able to, still carry and grandfather the walk-ons that were already on the team moving forward. So, I'm not, to be quite honest with you, I'm not really 100% sure. These rules change, and I'm not kidding with you, Shane, almost on a daily basis.
Oh yeah.
We're trying to figure that out ourselves. But we're opting right now to just stay with the 13 scholarships and keep the walk-ons essentially where they are. But I know other programs are doing the 15 and so forth. When it all is going to come to like a unilateral head, I'm not really sure. But walk-ons were, I mean, like some of my best friends in my career, were guys that I played with at Tulane that were walk-ons, and we still stay in contact today. So walk-ons are extremely valuable. They're very selfless. They go unnoticed unless they get in the game at the end, in a blowout and so forth. But they're doing a lot more than that. It takes a lot to be that selfless on a daily basis and put yourself in practice and essentially be a scout squad guy, all the time without getting any recognition. But they're extremely valuable.
No doubt about it. And my favorite time is when they get in and blowouts.
Yeah.
But I do not understand sometimes why the coach tells them to dribble the ball out. Let them fire it up. So, Coach, if you're ever a head coach, let your walk-ons just go down there and just fire them up from three.
Just let it go, huh? Let it go.
Let it go. Who cares if the other team pisses them off or not?
Right.
Hey, Coach, congratulations again. Phenomenal year. Boy, y'all brought back the excitement to Gator basketball. We appreciate it. Appreciate you joining the program, and we'll talk to you soon.
Shane, I appreciate you, and thanks for all you do for the university and all your accomplishments and so forth. Look forward to talking to you again.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Coach. That's Coach Carlin Hartman joining us on the Titan & More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Many car washes and games, but only one Gallo car wash, locally owned by a UF alum, and the only car wash that provides NIL opportunities to Gator athletes. Locations on 13th Street and Southwest Wilson Road, and coming soon to Jonesville. Appreciate everybody joining us today. And again, thanks to JC and Coach Carlin Hartman for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow, folks. Take care.